Kid Thunder VG Reviews, where we bring you some of the best of retro gaming journalism.
Welcome to another installment of Kid Thunder VG Reviews. On this multi-review episode, we will take a look at 6 games featured here. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Our first game up is Fighting Force, developed by Core Design. Prior to this game undergoing development, Core Design pitched the idea of another Streets of Rage game in the franchise towards Sega. However, Sega turned it down and decided they wanted to work on it themselves. Originally, this game was going to be Streets of Rage 4, but Core Design went on anyway and made it as a standalone title for multiple platforms, thus becoming the title Fighting Force. The PlayStation 1 version was released in the fall of '97, and it was ported to the Nintendo 64 as Fighting Force 64, which that version was released in the spring of '99. In November 2008, a prototype of the unreleased Sega Saturn version was leaked, and it's radically different from the final product, especially in the character designs. It's time to take an in-depth review and comparison of both the PlayStation and Nintendo 64 versions. The characters in this game, Hawk, Smasher, Elena, and Mace, have their various reasons for putting an end to criminal mastermind Dr. Dex Zhang. You must go after him at all costs. Hawk and Mace are the all-arounder characters. Smasher is the strongest but very slow in movement, and Elena is the weakest but with swift movement. It's all up to you to take on the baddies that Dr. Zhang has sent forward to you. The controls depend on what system you play on. In the PlayStation version, you have to resort to using the directional pad for the character's movements. In the Nintendo 64 version, you are resorted to using the analog stick. In either version, conducting moves are a piece of cake, but they quite differ from each other. All in all, it's still your typical beat-em-up game, now in 3D. In the PS1 version, each time you die, you will have to resort to using a continue if you have acquired any. However, in the N64 version, you will lose a life. When it comes to defeating a boss, you can choose whatever path you would have to take, but it depends on how many points you collect afterwards. I personally never had this problem with the PS1 version, but every time I play through the N64 version, I never get the chance to acquire so many points after finishing a boss. I will say the graphics for the time are just passable, but I cannot say that they have aged well. It's not bad, but in some areas it feels a bit dated for a late 90s video game release. If we compare both versions, I will say the Nintendo 64 version is a bit more cleaned up while the PS1 version is a bit more pixelated. Though in some stages the N64 version is missing a few things compared to the PS1 version. Understandably, the cartridge holds less content compared to optical media, but the N64 version takes a hit in things that are missing. Let's compare both versions of the game on the street stage as an example. As far as the soundtrack in both games, I do feel that both of them are equally good. The PS1 version may have been a bit more dynamic in my humble opinion, but the Nintendo 64 version also has decent tunes. The boss fight tune in the N64 version does feel like shit has gotten real and you are ready to kick somebody's ass. Overall, no matter what version you play, Fighting Force is still a game you cannot ignore and you should add either version to your collection. Published by Data East and developed by Argonaut Software. Here we have next is Creature Shock. Originally, this game was released on the PC, CDI, and 3DO in 1994. The plot of this game takes place in 2123 on the UNS Amazon heading towards the planet Saturn after Earth was destroyed by human activity, and you play as Commander Jason Barr to investigate the incident and head your way back to Mars, which becomes a second Earth for inhabitable living. I will say this, I totally dislike this game. I'm not sure what it is, but I have had numerous trouble just figuring out what to do. Sadly for me, I've only been stuck in the very first part of the game, and so far, it's mostly FMV stages. Let me say this verbatim. I am not a fan of FMV based video games at all, especially with some of the QuickTime events that may be a chore to work with, and trying to react to a situation before it's too late. In here, the developers attempted to make this into a rail shooter, similar to games like Sewer Shark and Lodestar: The Legend of Tolly Bodine for the Sega CD, but it's more or less on rails like certain light gun games. I'm playing the Sega Saturn version, according to the footage shown here, which I'd wish this version would either have light gun or mouse support. The only thing I can say about this game is that it does boast good usage of pre-rendered images and backgrounds, but if I were you, stay the fuck away from this total abomination. Developed by Sales Curve International, our next game up is Firepower 2000 for the Super Nintendo, or if you're living in Europe, you are given the title Super Swiv. This game is the sequel to Swiv, which in turn was a spiritual successor to the arcade game Silkworm. As far as the plot goes in this game, you are set to destroy a secret underground race that has stolen top military vehicles and equipment. In the single player mode, if you go to the options menu, you can select between the attack helicopter or the jeep. The audio visuals are outstanding. While playing this game, you will know the sound of getting hit by enemy fire or nuking the shit out of everything is very satisfying. The music in the game fit perfectly in every stage, including the point where you encounter a boss. Even the game over tune definitely screams perfection. I have to say that I loved every moment of this game, from the high quality audio visuals to the diversity in gameplay as a shoot 'em up. Give this game a go, it is highly recommended. Released in 1991 by Jalico, our next game up is Fortified Zone for the monochromatic brick, the Game Boy. Originally, this game was known as Ikari no Yosai in Japan. It is the first in a series. This game spun off two sequels, one being a Japan exclusive, which was also on the Game Boy, and a third game on the Super Nintendo, known as Operation Logic Bomb. As far as the plot goes, you play as two mercenaries, Masato Kanzaki and Mizuki Makimura. During the game, you are out there to infiltrate an area where enemy comrades and other evil inhabitants are trying to destroy the forest. This is a top-down run-and-gun shooter. What's unique feature here is that you can switch between Masato and Mizuki on the fly, and each character has unique abilities. For instance, Masato can use special weapons, and Mizuki has the ability to jump. If one of the characters die, there is no way you can resurrect them until the other dies and the game is over to restart the stage. The audio visuals for a Game Boy game are decent for an early title. There are some bosses in the game that will take up the majority of the screen. The game also has very nice tunes that are pleasing to the ears, from the beginning stages to the final stage, and it does not disappoint at all. Overall, Fortified Zone is one game you should check out. It's not the best run-and-gun I've played, but I would say its sequel, Operation Logic Bomb on the Super Nintendo, is a lot better mechanically. I might review that game sometime in a future episode. but either way, give this game a shot. Don't forget to check out my BandCamp page if you like chiptune music. Most of my music will be here as well. Time to take a look at a recently released Super Famicom Super NES title, Unholy Knight, the Darkness Hunter, released in 2017 by Foxbat and Blaze Pro. The team behind this game consisted of former SNK employees who have worked on the King of Fighters series of fighting games. Now, everyone who has played this game has stated that it's literally a pile of dog shit. And judging from the gameplay, I have to agree with everyone else's opinions on this. For one thing, it is downright shoddy, starting with the selection of characters. You're only limited to choosing 6 of them. The second problem, the goddamn frame rate. I mean, Street Fighter Alpha 2 on Super NES was on a 32 meg cart, and you meant to tell me the developers, whom by the way are supposedly industry veterans, didn't bother conduct any optimization before releasing the final product, which by the way, this game was also on a 32 meg cart? The controls are quite sluggish and shoddy for a fighting game as well, and I will say the hit detection can be horrendous. And good lord, the audio visuals are a mess. For one thing, while looking at the still shots on the box, you'd think this game will look fascinating. Unfortunately, the truth hurts. The developers probably conducted some serious plagiarism from big name games such as Guilty Gear. The backgrounds are just uninspiring and bland. If your eyes can bleed, they will. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters has much better visuals than this, and that game was released back in late 93, early 94. The music would also make your ears puke. I've paid $50 for this pile of garbage, but I'm not going to be like these angry internet game reviewers who would destroy a copy of a game once they play it. I'm just here to showcase how bad this game is, to take a look at it. In other words, this game will just sit around and collect dust. Most Dojin titles look and play miles better than this. Released in 1993 and developed by Naxxit Soft, we are now going to take a look at Double Dragon 2 on the PC Engine CD. In this version of Double Dragon 2, it is heavily based on the NES version rather than the arcade original, especially since it has animated cutscenes thrown in for good measure to tell the story. Gameplay-wise, the controls are identical to the NES version, where pushing both action buttons will make you jump, and the attacks can vary depending on what direction you're facing. Unlike the NES version where there are no continues, at least you can set the amount of continues and lives in this game, even in the multiplayer mode. I like the facelift of the graphics in this version, and I do feel the music, While a few tracks may be a bit odd, it's actually pleasant, but at least it does contain the tunes that are well known in the Double Dragon series. If you were to get this version of the game, you'd be paying a hefty penny for it. The best way to play it is getting a repro or downloading a TurboGrafx 16 emulator. That will do it for this episode of Kid Thunder VG Reviews. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen.